Hello, ladies and gentlemen of YouTube, and welcome to another episode of Fanalysis, Harry Potter and the Philosopher's Stone. I'm Retty4, this is Evan1195.
Hello?
This is Jen Soraya1.
Never mind that! Pig snout! Pig snout!
And this is Antoine Bandelay.
Hey there, guys. I silently sweat and I'm up to no good.
And today we're going to be covering Chapter 9, The Midnight Duel. So do you want to summarise that for us, Antoine, seeing as Matt's not here today?
Yes, in this episode of Harry Potter, his friends learn to fly, but they don't do that until they meet their arch nemesis, who swindles them into a midnight duel. Boom. That's what happens in this chapter.
And we also
I
meet Fluffy
challenge
at
you
the
to a
tail
duel!
Get some setup. Oh,
I don't even know if that theme song goes anymore.
Yeah, it's still ingrained
it
in
was
my
mostly
head.
instrumental. It was
Yeah.
mostly instrumental.
But anyway, we open up with this chapter on the flying lessons being announced on the notice board in the Gryffindor common room. Sort of bring us into the fact that Gryffindor and Slytherin are going to be taking it together, which is the only lesson they have shared outside of potions. I wonder why the teachers go with that route. Yeah, and also notes that Harry specifically does not like Draco Malfoy. He's thought I'd never find someone that I hate more than Dudley, and turns out that he has done. And you can't really blame him, given Malfoy's nature.
I know. And
There's
I just
always
love
someone worse.
I just love the fact that in one of the later books it stated that in comparison to Malfoy, Dudley was a kind, sensitive boy.
But yeah, we get the different perspectives on flying as the kind of friends talk about it around the Great Hall table, discussing, Hermione's been book learning, trying to prepare for it. Ron is talking about how he's had a chance to fly in the past, and Malfoy gloating about escaping Muggle helicopters in different various Avengers. I really enjoy the kind of introduction to the idea of flying, because the idea of the kids being excited to do it for the first time is so relatable, because who wouldn't? It's one of the first things I'd want to do if I went to Hogwarts, learn to fly.
Well, and in the bigger aspect, too, that it leads into the discussion of Quidditch and how that becomes basically the wizard version of football. And since we're talking about Philosopher's Stones, we're going to call it football. Like the proper football.
The book,
Seeing
our
as
version
World Cup's on right now,
to
it's apt as well.
soccer.
Does yours say football, by the way, Cal?
Yeah, ours is football.
I got the Brit version, so mine says football too. But yeah, and it is kind of interesting because it's like in Ron's response to football, we do see another example of wizard elitism, because he doesn't take it seriously, because it's like there's only one ball and no one's flying. What's the point?
And meanwhile, Dean's a big fan of the sport and he's trying to defend it. So you get this interplay.
And trying to defend his pictures, too, and being like, they don't move, but that's how it works in the Muggle world. He's like, what?
Yeah.
And like, Tom's hooking it to be like, hey, do you guys like... And it's kind of funny because later on we do see with the fat lady that, it's like, oh, yeah, these people can like totally leave their portraits if they want to. They're like totally living beings inside this weird portal world.
Portraits and photos are one of those weird mechanic things in the world that just
never
do
really
not make
explain
sense.
it.
They break the setting if you really start to think about it for even like a minute. But they're charming as long as you don't scratch it beneath the surface. And it's for Ron's amusement of them not moving is funny. But yeah, we get the start of the Hermione kind of Neville duo as well in the Great Hall, because Neville's trying to say, oh, what have you learned, trying to get tips off Hermione from the books, which is kind of the first time that they have that interplay going between, because obviously Neville relies on Hermione a lot moving forward through the books academically.
Well, we all had that friend who was much smarter than us and would always study, and we'd try to take notes off them.
Yeah, just steal their homework.
Or the inverse, if you happen to be the inverse.
Yeah, if you were that person, everyone would copy off you.
Yeah, depending on the subject, whether I was or not.
Yeah, exactly. And same with me. Like, it depends.
Same
on
with me.
If it was like anything math related, I'm like, nah, I'm the dude copying. But anything else, I usually was copied off of.
Yeah, same with me, basically everything else but maths. But yeah, the Remembrall comes up. Obviously, the post starts bringing the post the owls for Neville, and he gets this kind of unique, cool, not unique, new cool little magical device. It was I don't know why, but the film, the kind of visualization of it, I really enjoyed the cloudy kind of red effects. Yeah. It was really striking and vibrant in that design. I really liked that. Even though the device itself is, even in the books, kind of ultimately useless, because great, I've forgotten something. What have I forgotten? It would be more useful if it actually showed you, vaguely pensive style. But yeah, it's a cool little device, even if it's ultimately not very practical. I like the design and the idea behind it. But naturally, it being a shiny little red thing on the other side of the room, Malfoy's brought over and sees a mocking opportunity, tries to swipe it. And we get like the introduction to their little conflict for this chapter between Harry and Malfoy, because Harry and Ron immediately stand up to kind of defend Neville, even if it's just over this sort of silly little trinket. It's it's their friend, and he's being bullied. So this is kind of them stepping to the mark as they had done in the train, and will do for pretty much the rest of the books. But what I find funny is that immediately McGonagall has swooped in. She's seen Malfoy stand up. Out. Yeah, she's seen Malfoy standing up and walking over to the Gryffindor table. Like, right, Slytherin approaching Gryffindor. I'm going to swoop down here and deal with that. So yeah, the time
got the BS senses tingling.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And of course, it's like she could probably tell what sort of person Malfoy was. He's the sort of. It's like
he's a Malfoy.
It's like it's not just Slytherin approaching Gryffindor table. Yeah. It's Malfoy approaching the Gryffindor table. Oh shit! Another fucking douchey Malfoy.
Did she go to school with? No, she's much older than
she taught Lucius. Yeah.
She was probably in school with Draco's grandfather.
Probably. Because she was with Neville's grandmother, so it would be about that time.
Yeah, I like how self-contained some of these chapters tend to be, because like you get like the setup for like the conflict, which is like the Remembrall, and then that becomes like an escalating thing later on in the chapter, and that's resolved at the end because Harry, like even though he thinks he's going to get expelled, is actually put on the Quidditch team for Gryffindor as one of the youngest Seekers. So it's kind of cool. I like how you can almost read the chapters, like especially the chapters that happen within Hogwarts, like as their own like little cut of story within it.
Precisely, yeah. Like she always gives that kind of through line for each chapter that attached it. So this could just be a random scene that has no significance on anything. Just a nice little bit of world building. Oh, look, a new cool little magical trinket. But she actually makes it relevant throughout the chapter. And in terms of the self-containedness, yeah, she's always good with the kind of time transitions. Like next chapter, we get a time jump for the first time, pretty much. And like it kind of becomes a staple of the series that you'll have the seasons passing and the different kind of events of term that kind of would stand out to a kid who's going through school. And yeah, she always keeps the kind of the events contained within the either, if not a single chapter, a set of chapters based on a sequence. I like how she does that with the. It helps the pacing of the overall book, if nothing else.
Yeah, and that's why her chapters are a little bit longer than some others, because they have. It's about a subject matter. Like this one's about the Midnight Duel, which is also a little bit tied to the Flying Lessons as well, but it's all, relating to the same plot thread before it moves on to the next plot thread.
Yeah, because you almost forget looking back that the Flying Lessons and the Quidditch setup stuff was in the Midnight Duel, but it was all there because the conflict of the Remembrall setting off Malfoy and Harry is what launches the Midnight Duel. So it's all relevant. Right. You could see this being an episode.
It all kind of threads together.
Yeah, you can see this being an episode of like a series by itself.
Right, exactly. Which is why I think Harry Potter at some point in the future, if they ever redo it, should be done as like a series.
I agree wholeheartedly. In fact, my attitude is that Harry Potter would actually make for an excellent anime.
Or animated.
Well, the anime would be cool too.
In general,
would be crazy.
You could do a lot with the animated nature of it.
Basically, it's like first season is Pokemon, 7th season is Berserk.
Oh my god!
Oh Jesus!
If
anyone totally is watching this, take notes. Take notes. We should send this video to Toei.
So we lead into the Flying Lessons. Which,
I love how the brooms themselves like have their own little personalities, like as most things magical do in this world, and how even Fred and George once said like, "Hey, stay away from these brooms because they have a tendency to like fly to the left, or like they don't really." Yeah.
Yeah, no, I like that.
Which, like, same if you have, like, a bike or something like that, or a car that, like, leans to the left a little bit. You have to keep the steering wheel straight. It's crazy. It's
when the tracking's off, which reminds me, mine is at the moment. I need to get that fixed. But yeah, just always being the steering wheel practically turning one direction. Yeah, I like how she kind of ties the rickety nature of the old school. The fact that it's a school broom as well. Everyone's had that situation where they've had to use old school material that's just been there for years and they've never replaced because of budget. It's a nice little kind of nod to that.
Yep.
But even just the amusement of the scene itself, the up and just rolling around the floor, and some people just immediately flying up with the terms of relating to the confidence and the natural, how natural a flyer you are.
And and it is kind of interesting too, because it's like this, like you mentioned, it relates to confidence and how natural you are as a flyer. So it's like Harry, a natural flyer, these old school brooms work just fine. That's all
exactly.
he needs. Whereas poor Neville, oh, poor Neville. Poor
He
Neville.
likes it to a horse, like a horse knows
Yeah.
when you fear it or if something's wrong, and then they'll freak out as well. That's like what he likens these broomsticks to. And then the fact that, he's Harry Potter, so even if his equipment isn't up to snuff, he can still do it. And also just thinking that this is the first thing he's actually naturally good at within the magical world. Like there's other, talents he has, some of those being attributed because of Voldemort, as we find out later in the series. But this is the first thing that we realize, like, no, this is just a Harry thing. Like this isn't like anything to do with him being the boy who lived. This is just something that if that never happened, this would have been his thing,
As we
from
come
the
to know,
and we really feel
his. Sorry, Evan.
I was just saying we really feel his exuberance because it again kind of relates to the reader. We all have that moment in school where we finally find the subject or we finally find the team or we finally find the elective that really clicks for us, and that's what we really want to pursue. And it feels astounding.
Yeah, and both of these points that you've made, they're tied to the exhilaration of flight, which is just a inherent thing that everyone can understand, if not personally appreciate themselves. But also the fact that it's in his blood. This ties him to who his father was, because his father was a great seeker himself.
Your blood.
She always ties multiple points to everything she writes into these chapters. It's very rare that she'll just she'll have one thing that is just basically saying this one, telling the reader this one message. Conveying this one message rather.
It's also, I feel like it's similar, Harry being able to ride these rickety old broomsticks, same as like Anakin being able to do his pod racer, even though it's like a hunk of junk. It's nothing comparable to the other pod racers, but he's still able to like make it work because that's just his natural talent. And again, with flying, it's the same sort of thing going on.
Yes,
well, it's like a lot of it, it's just down to having such a strong affinity with whatever the thing is that it's like Harry on that broom. It's not Harry on a broom. It's that broom is now an extension of Harry's body.
Right.
Yeah, Harry is flying, not flying on a broom. It's just it's part of who he is and part of his family history, part of just his adventurous nature. It ties well into who he is as a character. It fits him.
If you'll excuse
you're not surprised by this.
If you'll excuse my minor tangent, it leaves me to wonder just how good Tom Riddle was on a broomstick during his school years. Like, was he any good at all, or did he just learn to fly unassisted because he hated broomsticks? It's like, it's more interesting food for thought, because it's because so much of what Voldemort is pretty much Tom Riddle trying to compensate for some form of inadequacy in some area, because that's all he sees in anything.
Yeah, I don't think he's ever been attributed with anything athletic in terms of Quidditch or flying.
I don't think he'd care much about it. I don't feel like he'd be out there on the Quidditch pitch at all. I think he'd just when the games are on, he'd just still be inside poring over books in the restricted section or something. I don't think that would appeal to him personally. As far as
he's concerned, Quidditch games are awesome because it means the castle's empty and he can do what he wants.
Whatever he wants.
Precisely.
Right?
I think that's more likely the case than him going out and I can't see him waving a Slytherin flag and banner.
No. But that being said, it is just interesting to think how good he was on the broom when he did take his flying lessons. Like, personally, I'm picturing him as being very good, but just very disinterested. It's like, okay, I can do this. Whatever.
But what's the real use of it? Like, what does it get me? He probably was more interested in apparating than he was with broomstick.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
And it does kind of open up the discussion. Oh.
Sorry, Evan. Go ahead.
And it does kind of open up the discussion from what you said before, Connor, like how it makes you wonder how Harry could have possibly adapted if he ever learned the, unrestricted flight technique.
Yeah.
God, that'd be funny. Just seeing Harry bat swooping through the air.
Be interesting. I wonder if he ever learned it.
I don't think so. I think it's more like a grand arch wizard type characters that would really fit that kind of level of power. Harry doesn't seem the type to devote so much energy to a so small a thing, shall we say?
Especially not when he's so good on the broomstick, because I think the other reason why Harry would probably find a broomstick more appealing than unassisted flight is just the tactile nature of it.
Yeah,
definitely.
I could agree with that. Yeah.
And also, most people kind of attribute like if Harry wasn't a Gryffindor, he'd be Slytherin. But I actually don't think that would be the case, because I don't, like you were saying, like I don't think he would ever care to do that masterclass kind of magician stuff. He kind of like just he does things that are kind of like he's naturally has an affinity for. He doesn't really go out and go like, oh, I must like make this happen for myself. I always attributed his secondary house to be like Hufflepuff. Because I
totally agree with that.
Right, instead of it being Slytherin.
especially given his personal sense of duty, because it's like after his bravery, he's got the whole hero thing.
Not to mention his loyalty,
dedicated, incredibly loyal.
Of the Hufflepuff house more than that.
Even to Dumbledore, because it was hard for him to like swallow the things that were revealed about Dumbledore, because he was like, that was my man, like that was like, he was my dude,
He's competitively driven. He's not ambitious. It's not to me,
anyway.
Right?
Exactly.
Yeah.
That's just who
and there is a very critical difference between that, which is what I was discussing in our Sorting Hat video.
Yeah. But the flying lesson obviously takes place. We get Madame Hooch kind of guiding them in how to steer on the broom. I like how she describes this because it kind of feels very intuitive and how the broom kind of responds to your motions. You can sort of imagine in your head how you would have to do it based on.
It's almost like the broomstick itself is the joystick.
Yes, yeah, we kind of tilt down and up. And it feels like a really cool way of doing it. But yeah, Madame Hooch is a funny character anyway. The fact that she's kind of halfway between eccentric and strict. I enjoy kind of a mix between Professor Sprout and Professor McGonagall in terms of how she comes out on the page. But the films as well. The films executed the entire lesson very well. Like this is basically verbatim.
Oh, I loved Zoe Wanamaker as Madame Hooch, especially because it's like a few years later I'm playing Fable 2. Why does Teresa sound exactly like Madame Hooch?
It's another example of
small world.
Are we supposed to take that she's an animagus, or is she something else?
The hawk eyes.
Or she just likes eyes like that, and she's just like, I'm just going to have my eyes like this.
Yeah, probably just transfigure her eyes if it's not just
a
natural.
The other possibility is that maybe she's one of those wizards with mixed ancestry like Hagrid. So we just don't know what her. Yeah, because
she's a descendant of some sort of harpy human mix,
right?
So then you'd have Hagrid, Madame Hooch, and Flitwick.
Oh, and then if you want to go international, you got Fleur and Madame Olympe.
That's true. But Fleur looks very much like a human, but now she is half Vila.
She's she's more like 1/8, less. I think it's like her. No, it's she's quarter. It's her she said her grandmother is a Vila. But yeah.
But yeah, so the actual sequence itself plays out pretty much exactly as you remember it from the film if you haven't read the book, because it was really well captured and reimagined or presented in the films. I enjoy the sequence. It's kind of up to terms of what Neville does in the films. He's obviously flying around a lot more and hitting the roof and such, but it's effectively the same experience. Particularly the interaction between Malfoy and Harry, because when he goes up to kind of get the Remembrall that Neville has dropped when he's taken off to the hospital wing, the kind of back and forth there is literally word for word exactly the same, pretty much.
Except for the gratuitous swearing in the movie, because they just decide he would have remembered to fall on his fat ass.
But yeah, it's amusing. I enjoy both versions.
Even the little bits of having it says the girls were like gasping and then Ron was giving him a big whoop or whatever. That's something you don't really see in the movie, but you kind of get it. Just when he flies off, that's like the impression you get is some people were like,
it's easy to infer. Yeah.
And also Neville's broom, just traveling over to the Forbidden Forest and being like, and also that was a little bit set up too. At the beginning of the scene setting that she does, she mentions the black line of Forbidden Forest just as a little note, and then later on, you have and the broomstick went there. So another she's really good at tying that kind of stuff together, but also just thinking about magical objects having a draw to the Forbidden Forest. That's where I want to be. That's where the party's at.
Yeah, just I like the way she sets up scenes. She'll give, like you said, she'll give that single line of description that just kind of fades into the background of your head as you read, and then as you get to the point when it becomes relevant, oh yeah, of course that's there because she's mentioned it. She's good at not bogging down text with massive descriptions and settings.
Doesn't bog down text.
Yeah, but it's still all there. It's very rare that she'll. I mean, there have been a few examples that we've not mentioned up to this point, but it's very rare that she'll have something that just kind of pops into existence when you need it in a scene. She's very good at pre-establishment. One thing I do want to know as well, props to Parvati for standing up for both Neville and Harry here. She kind of appears out of the crowd of who are people who are only just really named.
That happens a lot more often, I feel like, in the books than it does in the movies. Because they kind of focus in on just a quartet of kids or maybe a half dozen kids, but in the book it's definitely no, this is a school and other people also have lives and they want to interact with Harry or just anything,
which is one reason why I would find it so interesting, even if it was just reading a fanfic storyline, to just the Harry Potter storyline told from the perspective of the other guys. Like, what are
Callan.
they seeing?
Yeah,
Do you want to say the thing that you always say right now?
Plugging the awesome fan fiction with the terrible title. Please don't judge it on the title. Dumbledore's Army in the Year of Darkness is an amazing fan fiction I highly recommend everyone reads.
Really good.
It's
but
really
you can't
damn
find
good.
it anymore.
Well, you can.
Can't
It's
find
on
it
the
anymore.
internet. Just for some reason it was taken off fan
Yeah,
fiction.
you can find it still.
Yeah,
it's
but
formatted kind
You
of
can't-
but it's still there.
and it's a really good fan fiction.
Really
highly
good.
recommend it. Don't judge it on the title. But yeah, that brings to life
Most
all
mature
of the side characters,
Harry
and really fleshes out the final year for them in these, their perspective of the seventh book. But I just like how all of these characters are kind of coming to the foreground. They all have like that mini little moments. Even though all she's doing is standing up for Neville and Harry here. She's now no longer just a face in the crowd with a name. She actually has. You can kind of visualize who she is. And you get little snippets of that from most people. Ernie Macmillan,
Right.
Zacharias Smith, for example, or little tiny people.
Lavender Brown.
Lavender
gets
Brown,
a little bit
yeah. And obviously Seamus and Dean as well.
Yeah.
But yeah, so they all kind of pop up at each point, and I liked that she was doing it here because
It's funny for me because the movies are more of a supplement to me. Like, I don't really separate this. Like, I don't do the thing where I'm like, oh man, it sucks for somebody who didn't read the books. I'm like, I read the book, so you know what? Like, it's cool for me. So like those character traits that they have in the books, I like kind of apply to the movie versions, and I'm like, oh yeah, like those are totally like, especially for like Seamus and Dean, who I feel like Seamus gets a little bit more, but Dean doesn't get much. But in the movie, but I know what he does in the book, and I apply that to like what happens visually in the movie.
Dean's really weird in the films. Like he gets like weirdly dramatic in the third film as well. It's like it's, bizarre. But I know what you mean. The books give you this much more enriched world and just background people because you have more time to dedicate to them. 3 sentences in a book is enough to kind of encapsulate a character, but in a film that would translate to a minute screen time. You can't spend the time on it. But yeah, so I just wanted to make that note because it was important to me. So Harry obviously catches the Remembrall and in a deep dive swoop that he could have broken his neck with as McGonagall comes.
But goes right back up, which is crazy.
It's very cool visual, if nothing else. But McGonagall comes out half pissed, half impressed, and is like, "What? You've never have I ever?" And she's kind of caught between that awe and.
I love the formatting that it has here. There's a sequence where he goes like, "It wasn't his fault, Professor. Be quiet, Miss Patil." But Malfoy, that's enough, Mr. Weasley. Potter, follow me now. And there's no dialogue attribution there, but you know exactly who's speaking. And she does that a lot within the series, and I always liked that stylistically from her in her books.
Yeah, a lot of authors try this, and you'll have like even 4
and it
or
doesn't
5
work.
lines, and you've got you're saying that you can work it out 9 times out of 10, but you have to stop and think about it. With
Exactly,
with
it
Rowling,
doesn't
she
flow.
immediately follows it up with a response. Like for example, McGonagall addressing Pavati and Ron as they mention their lines. It flows, and she does it all the time.
I think a big thing that she did have working for her, though, was context, because a teacher at a school is always going to be referring to students, by name. It's not just going to be like, oh, be quiet. It's going to be quiet, such and such.
Yeah, precisely. She
Especially a professor like McGonagall.
Yes,
yeah. Because she's the sort of person who remembers.
Oh, yeah.
she'll put fear in your name, man.
But yeah, so obviously McGonagall leads Harry away. Everyone, I like the train of thought that's going through his head. It's very much a good kid that's in trouble. Yeah, everyone's probably been at least to some degree in this situation where like, oh god, going red alert as every possible horrible possibility goes through their head. When really it's fine. He was never going to be expelled for this. Anyone reading knows that pretty much, unless you're obviously a very young child. But it still fits because he's not going to be looking at it from that perspective because he's the one in it. He's panicking. Oh god! He doesn't want to leave this magical world he's only just been brought into. And
he's going to panic for quite a bit because she goes all the way up. Well, in the movies, it's the Defense Against Dark Arts classroom. I don't know what it is. Because
it's charms, isn't it?
It's
charms.
No, it's charms.
Excuse me, Professor Flitwick. Could I borrow wood for a moment?
I mean, so he's following her up these stairs and through corridors and it's described in the book too. Like they're spending a lot of time walking through the castle, so he's got all this stuff running through his mind, and he makes it worse and worse for himself just because he's letting his imagination fester to the worst possible scenario.
It's very Harry that actually. In general, he's always
overthinking,
very much in his head space, and overthinking things and going to the worst possible conclusion to his detriment as we get to later on in the series. But I like the visual of it. Just walk through the street.
It's one It's one of those areas where his background with the Dursleys really screwed him over. Because he did not come out of that household unscathed. It's like he's reasonably well adjusted, he's decent, but he's not perfect. He's got his fair share of issues. Like one of the things I noticed later in the series, whenever Harry gets angry, he gets angry almost exactly like Uncle Vernon does. It's a lot of bellowing.
Oh, you mean like fifth book Harry?
Yeah, fifth book Harry is when everything kind of the dam
all
bursts.
caps Harry.
The dam bursts, as
All
it were.
Caps.
But yeah, I don't know if I agree with the Vernon thing, but I get where you're coming from in terms of how he's shouting, because he is very much an emotive character. You know, if he's angry, he's angry. He's not just putting it on or whatever, or being over dramatic 9 times out of 10, unless he's being a moody teenager. Unless he's a moody teenager.
Yours are passionate.
Definitely. But yeah, so when we get the introduction to Wood, who's I really enjoyed in the interaction between him and McGonagall, because they're kind of almost forgetting that Harry's there. It's always the best I've ever seen. It's really? Well, we need to get him the most expensive broom on the market. It's like, or Clean Sweep 7.
Yeah.
and just asking his professor that we need to get him that, which is just
Hey,
hilarious.
and also shows a little bit into like McGonagall. Like this is the first time we see her not just as like a teacher,
She's
but
got a major soft
as a
spot for both
fan
Quidditch
of
and
of Harry. But yeah, Quidditch and Harry. So like she couldn't live down Snape winning the cup like all those other years, whatever, and. Just seeing her like just talking about it, and then like going out and buying him the best broom period of the time is like, whoa, you're going a little bit like you're really into Quidditch, aren't you? It's like buying the kid like the best like
Gryffindor
the best football.
Yeah.
Gryffindor pride is the word. Yeah.
And just a nice little subtle hint
words.
at McGonagall. Just a nice little subtle hint at McGonagall's own background, because we later find out that she was a freaking champion Quidditch player during her school days.
I forget if she was a chaser. She was a seeker.
Can't remember. I didn't know she.
But it's not something that was in the books. It was something that was outside of the books. So.
Yeah, it's from Pottermore. It's her background, but yeah.
I'm googling it.
He's like, I want to know. It's a mystery. Wait. Oh, but I mean, we can. Okay. Although a nasty fall in her final year, a foul during the Gryffindor versus Slytherin game, which could decide the cup winner. Now, just judging on who's fouled the most, usually seekers.
So
she might be a seeker.
Yeah, and but that's specifically what she notes as being the thing that makes her want to, lifelong dream of having Slytherin crushed on the Quidditch pitch. It's just because of that. She's holding a grudge.
Who else gets? I mean, I guess chasers maybe will be fouled, but most times fouls are committed against the seekers, as said in Quidditch to the Ages, which I read along with Hermione Granger.
And that actually makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense, actually, because in a lot of ways, the Seekers are the linchpin of a team. Take them down.
Oh, gosh, yes.
Yeah.
Also worth noting, though, just doing our research there, James Potter was a chaser, not a seeker. That I never realised that. I always thought he was a seeker, kind of just by the fact that it was not really specified a lot of the time.
Right.
I just think he was a great player.
Though I will say that the idea of James Potter being a chaser instead of a seeker actually does make sense to me, just based on James Potter's personality.
Oh yeah,
because
it definitely fits the character. Like you can totally see him being
beater or
that type.
chaser works.
Yeah,
seeker and keeper would be a little bit too passive for him.
Yeah, it's like he's front and center leading the charge. He's not on the sidelines looking.
Yeah. Are we recording? Because we should be recording if we are.
Yeah.
Or not. Okay, cool. I'm just making sure.
Okay.
But yeah, sorry. So that tangent aside, we get the discussion between McGonagall and Wood, kind of setting up Harry up for being the Seeker and saying that he's get this broom. Maybe not the most expensive ever, Wood, but whatever. And that he's going to join the Quidditch team and be the youngest Seeker in a century, which cuts to the Great Hall again as Harry's explaining this to Ron, who both of which noticeably excited by the fact that they've Harry's found something his calling, something he's really good at in the community, magical community, and Ron's just excited because cool, his best friend's being awesome again, and more than anything else showing up Malfoy. Yeah, we got this is where Malfoy comes over again and gloats, saying, "Oh, you're gonna be sent back home," and la la la, haha. Malfoy comes over and basically mocks him, and we get that lead into the duel.
They throw it in his face.
Yep.
Yeah, well, because Harry taunts him and says, you're a lot more confident now that you got Crabbe and Goyle with you, and he's like, I'll do it on my own, and then sets him up for the midnight duel.
It's I like the kind of highlighting of the different traits of the houses as well here. Harry's being brave and Malfoy's being cunning. both of the whole skews of the
Very much so.
attached to it.
And a Gryffindor falling into the trap of a Slytherin.
Yeah. You could see it hook, line, and sinker. And Hermione obviously knows what's up as well because she warns them ahead of time. Well, it doesn't warn them specifically about that, but the trouble that they'll get into. And then after the fact, says, wasn't it obvious? This is going to happen. This has happened. She's also there, and the Hermione's kind of acting as a background kind of not a foil, but there's tension going on here because she's kind of irritated that they're taking the rules so flippantly. And that kind of follows up with them when they leave the house that evening for the duel. Mm-hmm. She's obviously in the armchair waiting.
Well, I like the line is I couldn't help overhearing what you and Malfoy were saying. Bet you could.
Yeah.
And it's like the first time that Ron, because Ron and Hermione bicker all the time. It's like their first little back and forth they had. I mean, I think they had a little bit in the train too.
Yeah, the train as well.
This is like the first time we get like an indication of like this is them. This is their relationship.
Yeah. I mean, even Harry gets a bit snippy with her this chapter. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah, he does.
Ron is the kind of hammer blow.
He's always the bridge between the two. Like he's snippy, but not in the same way. Ron will go deeper. Cut deeper.
You're right though. You're right to bring that up. I like that line. It's very. She does. We talk about how she writes kind of dialogue a lot, but she does in kind of interjections really well in the flow of the paragraph. Like you'll feel like you're part of the conversation in the way it cuts off, and she's like, "Oh, I bet you could." It fits in nicely.
I've actually never listened to the audiobooks, but I expect that they read very well.
Definitely
by reading them in my head.
No, they do.
I've
They're
not listened
great.
to the American version, but Stephen Fry does an amazing job for the UK one. It flows really well.
I gotta hear that because Stephen Fry is awesome.
I would love to see that. Stephen Fry's great, but but the American one is very good still.
Do you know who does the American one?
Jim Dale, right? Jim Dale.
I believe so.
From what I've heard, a lot of people think he did a better job, just from how he interacted with the voices and stuff.
Jim Dale. Jim Dale.
But
I haven't heard Stephen Fry, so I can't say. But Jim Dale did a fantastic job. So highly recommended. Just saying.
Yeah, I just feel like reading's faster, so I don't have time to listen to the audio.
It's true.
Just driving, down the street, listening.
I don't drive enough. I wish I drove more just for that reason.
That's when I do it when I'm either working, building a PCs, or when I'm driving down the street.
Right.
Just so you can do it while doing something else, and so it's just kind of fitting two time slots together if you can. But,
Some of my fondest memories are when I'm on country drives with my grandmother listening to the Lord of the Rings radio play.
Oh, I love the
radio drama. I wish I could do a radio drama at one point.
Yeah.
What I also like, one of my friends on Facebook recently put the notion out on Facebook going like, Harry Potter is crazy. Like all these kids getting into trouble, nearly dying half the time. And it's like, yeah, that's true. I mean, the wizard world is kind of dangerous. And they kind of throw caution to the wind, but that's also because they're wizards. Like the fact that Neville was thrown out of his house to see if he was magical, or no, just because they were playing around. But then that's how they found out he's magical because he didn't break his bones or whatever. That just kind of cuts with the territory. They can play Quidditch and not have that much padding because when they fall, they don't necessarily. If they do break something, it's just an arm, not like their spine or something like that. As Newt said in the Fantastic Beasts movie, he's like he gave. Muggle guy. He gave Muggle or No Mage guy a helmet, and he's like, "You guys are susceptible to breakage or whatever like that." That's kind of part of it. Is that these wizards are they live to be much more than we do. They're more they have more fortitude than we do as humans. So this kind of stuff that is thrilling and scary to us doesn't really work for them.
Yeah, you weren't here last time, but Connor mentioned this. I think it was the previous chapter, possibly the one before that. That they do have this kind of fortitude and constitution with them. I'm personally more in favour of the fact that their magical solutions to their problems just kind of gets them around it, regardless.
That's too. They're whenever I broke my arm, I'll have Madame Pomfrey
it's tap one. It's fixed.
It is a two-way street though, because you got to remember that the magic comes from within. It is itself within their own body.
Of course,
a body that's charged with magical energy is probably going to be a bit tougher to damage.
Of course, I just like it to be a bit more esoteric, a bit more abstract than just the fact that they're more resilient, physically.
Yeah, exactly. I know what you mean about it being esoteric, for sure.
Yeah, but yeah, the duel is kind of set up, and they head out, and Hermione stops them. You get the classic turn in the
does the classic
moment.
Turn on the turn on the light, go somewhere. Also before we get to Hermione, we're also kind of we get a vague layout of what the rules for a wizard duel are. the idea of there being
basically just
a second
real life duels,
but
played into wizard duels, so magic is involved. I like the idea that Ron's comforting him, saying, "Oh, don't worry, you won't be able to kill each other. You'll probably just shoot sparks."
Right,
because they're only first years.
What happens if I drop my wand? Go up to him and punch him in the nose. That's such a Ron thing to say.
It is a very Ron thing to say.
Well, and it's funny because that's what happens with his father against Lucius in the second book. He actually has a fist fight with him, and then I think even the mother was like, "What are you doing? Like fighting like a muggle? Like what are you doing punching him?"
It's brilliant. I like the idea that they're not accustomed to the physical fights because they don't need to be. You can just aim a wand and do whatever effect you want. It's great. But yeah, so they set up that line that scenario, and they meet Hermione down in the Gryffindor common room, who's trying to stop them, understandably. Like, you're going to lose me all my points, and she's trying to, again, it's her keeping them out of trouble and kind of sticking her nose where it doesn't belong. But at the same time, she's right. They are being idiots at this point, both in the fact that they're falling for a trap and also they're just doing something stupid for selfish reasons. I mean, Harry even himself is like, maybe I'm pushing it a little bit, breaking 2 major rules in one day, but this is the first adventure, isn't it? This is what makes the Golden Trio who they are. The fact that Hermione comes with them, she's not just going to let them go out by themselves. They go on this little expedition into the Hogwarts, and it is the first of Hogwarts, and it is the first of many. And they also trip over Neville on the outdoor.
Literally, he's like sleeping on this in the hallway because he forgot the password.
Yeah, because I initially, when I reread this, I was thinking, oh, she's made a kind of continuity error here in the fact that Neville isn't back yet. When he says that Neville's been still at the hospital wing, it's like, what? Really, for a broken wrist? Why wasn't it a tap and fix? But it was a tap and fix. He just couldn't get back into the common room. So I like that wasn't a mistake there.
Is it the same book where he ends up writing his passwords on like a piece of paper? No, that's the third one.
Yeah, that's the
third one. That's how serious.
That's when McGonagall gets really annoyed with him.
Right.
Yeah. No. So he has problems with the password. Can't get back in though because, like you said earlier, the fat lady
was gone.
Vacant. Yeah, not there.
Yeah.
Which is
I do like
how with that night.
Yeah. I do like how this chapter also reinforces the almost incidental connection that Neville has with the Golden Trio, but it's a very persistent connection, and I'm actually kind of sad that it wasn't all 4 of them in the film, because in the film Neville was not with them when.
Yeah, he's too much of a side character for the film focus, but it works in the book very well. Again, he's main character in that fanfiction I mentioned earlier. Go watch
and I believe, that's true. I believe
Pretty
Dean
badass.
was also in her first draft was part of this as well. I don't know if it was Chamber of Secrets or if it was this one. It was one of the first 2 books where Dean would join them in one of their nightly adventures.
They go down the hallway to try and meet up Malfoy for the duel.
Yeah, they kind of head down to the trophy room. Hermione and Neville in tow, and obviously it's a trap. Filch turns up immediately after they arrive, and the chase happens. So basically the trap they fall for the trap as you'd expect, and the trap they flee him and the cat, and then Peeves as well, and they encounter Fluffy.
Yeah.
Each of them having about the same reaction to that as you'd expect. I like the fact that Hermione, because obviously after the fact when they leave, but I'm skipping ahead. They arrive at Fluffy's door, and Hermione gets the loyalty of Harry's wand for all time because she snatches out of his hand and uses Lohomora. So, worth noting, Hermione currently has the loyalty of Harry's wand in the book. It's not a disarm, but you don't actually have to use magic to get the loyalty. So, snatch, it's now hers. She now has Harry's wand.
Well, that's only for the other one, or is that for all wands?
No, that's for all wands, and it makes no sense. But
I'm willing to accept it as maybe it's like more like your wand shares loyalties. So if Harry ever gave Malfoy's wand back to him, it would still work just fine as his wand. It would just work perfectly for Harry too.
Because they were swapping in book 7 too, Hermione and Harry, because his wand was gone and he was using Hermione's wand.
Yeah. But they can work for other people.
Someone needs to make like a flow chart of like all the wands in the series.
I'm sure someone already has. We can have a look for that. But it's an annoying idea that it shouldn't have really come up in the book. For the older wand alone, fine. But every other wand, it makes no sense. The amount of times you get disarmed. Well, I've lost the loyalty of my wand forever.
Well, maybe we should save this for book 7.
Yeah, we'll put that off.
Yeah,
but anyway, just wanted to make it
make
it known that she has the loyalty at the moment. We'll see if he gets it back. But she
So
uses Lohomora, classic scene of move over. They get in to see Fluffy, and Hermione spends her time looking at the fact that he's standing on a trapdoor.
3-headed dog.
Right.
Introduction of this great beast. First major kind of mythical beast in the film as well, or in the series rather.
Well, speaking about film and leaving something out, Peeves is a big thing too in the chapter where he has the funny thing of like, if you tell me please, then then I'll tell you where the kids are, and he doesn't, or Filch doesn't. And he's like, "Why you didn't tell me?" So I'm gonna go away and be mischievous somewhere else.
It just seems to me that the perfect way to make Peeves leave you alone and say, "Get out of my way, Peeves. I'm up to mischief."
Yeah, basically, it's that I'm up to
Oh,
mischief.
you are?
I'm up to mischief,
Good.
and I want. Can you
Like,
help
I'm
me
sure
get rid
Fred
of
and
Filch?
George have had no issues with Peeves.
Oh,
They're
yeah.
like, Peeves is awesome. He's our guy.
I mean, he salutes them as
Probably,
they're
yeah.
leaving, doesn't he? So he's all for those two. But yeah, just tell him to go bother Filch and job done. But they haven't quite learned how to maneuver Peeves yet. So he works as an effective foil. But yeah, they meet Fluffy, as I said, first mythical beast of the series, pretty much, that comes up. And
Cerberus.
Yep, Cerberus. And
Yep,
Hermione's, spending her time looking at his feet because look, he's on a trap door. So she's like, oh, look at that. When everyone else is just screaming their head off, and they retreat as they.
One of the coolest things about the Harry Potter books is that, the coolest thing about Harry Potter is that it's really at its core is that they're mystery novels, and it's like kind of like detective novels, and Harry Potter is like Encyclopedia Brown, which I don't know if that makes sense to Brits, but that's a thing in America. I don't even know if you really know about Encyclopedia Brown.
Yeah,
Connor.
I've heard of it.
I know about Encyclopedia Brown.
Okay.
It has been many years.
I haven't read it since I was a kid. So.
Yeah, I know about
that's old
Encyclopedia
school.
Yeah,
Oh
very
God,
much so.
the freaking robot chicken Encyclopedia Brown. Just no.
But
yeah, almost every book is like a mystery. It's about revealing information, figuring out what's going on. I think that it works very well most of the time.
And Harry is, at his core, a detective. That's his primary kind of trait as a
Which
character.
is why it's great that he becomes an Auror.
Yeah, you got all the three characters have their own little traits that they bring to the team, and I like that it's kind of established here. Got Ron the pragmatist, Harry the detective, and Hermione the kind of the intellectual.
Yeah.
So didn't you notice? Obviously it was guarding something, and there's like priorities. I wasn't looking at its feet.
Too busy looking at
Yeah, it's brilliant.
Because you didn't. There were 3. Oh yeah, Hermione's not even in the book. Actually, the priorities line, like when she says like been expelled, or worse, expelled.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's
she needs to sort out her priorities. That's a really good one from Steve Knowles.
Yeah, it's a great line.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. That's a really good addition from the film. It's one of the classic lines, if anything. It stands out. It's almost like a trailer line. Was it in the trailer at the time? I can't remember.
Yes, it was. Yes,
it did, yeah.
it was.
Far along gone off.
Yeah.
Apologies for that. But yeah,
it was a trailer line.
Yeah, it's ready made for one. And yeah, that's kind of the setup of their first adventure, and they go back to bed. I like the description. Well, I suppose that's next chapter. But just before we cut off, I like the description of Ron and Harry are ready to go on another adventure. They're already ready after the thrill of the night has passed, and they wake up completely
Got
ready.
that adrenaline going.
Yeah, Hermione's like, don't want to talk to you about it, and Neville's like, never want to speak of that dog again. But yeah, it's a nice first adventure. I think I like that it didn't come to just being this action scene of a duel between Harry and Draco, because that would have been almost boring in comparison to what we actually got. It makes sense in setting up the nature of the characters as well. What are your guys' closing thoughts on the chapter?
I mean, that's pretty much it. Like I said, it's a nice self-contained
good little
chapter.
adventure.
Like, yeah, you have an issue at the beginning or trepidations that Harry has, and then those are overcome, and then you get something new, so that you kind of like an episode. It's like, oh, I would like to watch the next episode, or in this case, I got to read the next chapter. So, but not in the way that sometimes books very cheaply will just do like a cliffhanger, and being like, oh, find out if this person dies or whatever. Like, it's not like that. Just more like that was just a fun read. I want another one of those feelings again in the next chapter.
It's in the grand scheme of things, it's a pretty inconsequential chapter as far as the overall book's kind of plot goes. You obviously there are things that are revealed, but it really could just be boiled down to a much simpler format. And I like the fact that even though that's the case, you're still enjoying it all. It is this kind of mini, like I said, mini episode, kind of mini literal chapter of the narrative, where so much is unique kind of introductory things are happening. You just kind of read through it and it flows. It's nice. There's a lot of stuff in here that I kind of forgot was a part of this specific chapter.
Can you tell the part of the Halloween chapter?
Yeah. One of my favorite little details is that even though Hermione technically is not their friend yet, she's still a beneficial part of their team.
Oh, yes. And that's the other thing I was meant to mention, actually. Thank you, Connor. Harry's leadership. skills. He basically immediately falls into the leadership role here, leading them out the portrait. Even begrudging Neville or begrudging Hermione and terrified Neville. He's already just leading them on this adventure. That flows perfectly into the kind of the episode, as it were, of this adventure. And Hermione, you're right, is an integral part of the team even now. So worth noting. But that about wraps this one up. So let us know in the comments below anything we've missed or wanted to cover in greater detail, guys. I hope you're looking forward to the next chapter with Halloween. I know I am. It's one of my favourites. I'm ready for, and I still don't have an outro.
Evanova95. We hope you guys enjoyed. We'll see you guys later.
Jenserai1 signing off. Good night.
Antoine Bandele, peace, love, and mischief managed.
Goodbye.